Hello and welcome to the Trumped Up Podcast. I am your host, Keith Rao. Welcome to the show. This is Season 1, Episode 3. This is Border Security. Are we allowing the next 9/11? 9/11 is a day that will forever live in infamy in American history. Nobody expected it. It was just a beautiful day. It was peaceful until that all-fateful attack on America began. New Yorkers stood in awe when they first seen the first plane hit the building, thinking maybe this was a horrific accident. Maybe something just went horribly wrong. But they would soon learn after the second attack on the World Trade Center that no, this is something more than that. It led to many different things happening in America. I mean, it all had to do with immigration, really. It still has to do with immigration. People think that they couldn't believe this could happen, but there was plenty of warnings in intelligence before this, but the warnings weren't heeded. People didn't take the intelligence serious enough, or they couldn't fathom that something drastic like this was going to happen. But there was definitely indicators out there. By the time the Pentagon was attacked also on September 11th, 2001, that's when everybody knew. Everybody knew that this was a terrorist attack. I mean, immigrants came here, they used our system, they trained to be pilots, and then they hijacked airplanes and created the greatest spectacle in terrorism ever. I mean, this attack, people just didn't, I don't know, they couldn't wrap their mind around it. But back in my day, like back when I was in high school, and you talk about sleeper cells and terrorist organizations could just be here living life like they're normal people, and then suddenly one day they just uprise and attack. Hell, that's not so much a conspiracy theory anymore. It's actually reality, and it actually happened, and we're about a year and a couple months removed from the 20th anniversary. It's kind of hard to believe it's actually been 20 years. But thankfully, since then, there's been nothing this drastic. I mean, we've had numerous attacks in small aspects with people using trucks or mass shootings, but nothing to the scale of 9/11. I don't think, I mean, it's literally an act of war by a terrorist organization. I mean, if another foreign country had tried that, I mean, we probably would have wiped them off the map for sure, but it's not the way it goes when it's a terrorist organization. And then we had to get a lot of intelligence after that, but the world pretty much stopped in America. I mean, sporting events were canceled, public events were canceled, but America came together. America came together unlike now. I mean, America's divided, and if you go with the motto, united we stand, divided we fall, if this division in America keeps continuing, I mean, we'll probably eat ourselves alive from the inside, and the terrorists won't have to do anything to us because there'll be people out there doing it on their own. I mean, politics is politics, but the extreme derangement of it all is just intense. But there were warnings for 9/11. There was intelligence gathering, and people didn't take the warnings seriously, or they ignored them, or they didn't do anything they had to do to prevent this from ever happening. And then after the fact, they were like, oh my God, I can't believe this. But nothing is unbelievable in this day and age. I mean, the amount of technology alone has advanced in the last 100 years is unbelievable. But right now, our borders are not secure, not at all. I mean, the Trump administration is making progress. They're getting walls built, fencing, whatever you want to call it, a barrier. Call it what you will, whatever way you want to describe it. But parts of it are being built and parts are being revamped that weren't up to par in the first place. But I mean, if you got a fence that's 14 miles long and then suddenly it stops, everybody will just go around. Or Like the drug cartels, they've been taking advantage of this for years, which partially led to the opiate epidemic, which also has to do with doctors prescribing too many damn pills. I mean, I've seen a lot of people doing this, and I'm like, this isn't good. These people are like out of control. But the cartels and other people are taking advantage of these openings. The cartels just go where the Border Patrol isn't. But you got to think about it. If some little kid can actually just come across the border unaccompanied, why the hell do you think terrorists can't? I mean, they probably already have. They're probably in America. We don't know. But I mean, gang members. I mean, you could literally, me personally, I classify the drug cartels as a terrorist organization because they cause terror. They murder people in the streets. They're getting people hooked on drugs, all in the name of money. I mean, when you get the radical Islamic terrorists, they're doing it based on an ideology, but the drug cartels, they're doing it, it's about money. How do you look at the cartel any different than the mafia? Same thing. I mean, they all have their issues and what they're trying to do, but it's all about money and power. But we really got to secure this border because if we don't, I'm predicting something bad is going to happen someday in America. Maybe not in a year, maybe not in 2 years, maybe not in 5 years, maybe in 10 years. Maybe on the 20th anniversary of 9/11, who knows? I mean, these people like to pick days or times or something significant that would really stick in people's heads. You know, a lot of people out there that are in the younger generation were little kids or weren't even alive when 9/11 happened. So they can't even fathom that. They're like, oh, this happened. It's just a history lesson to them, unfortunately, because they didn't live through this. But for New Yorkers, people in DC, people who worked at the Pentagon, the world just stopped. I mean, it stopped for weeks. NASCAR races were canceled. I mean, people couldn't go to sporting events. Concerts were canceled. I mean, people did come together and do like a charity thing to help the victims. But why the world stopped? I mean, we grounded airplanes. I mean, there was no planes going nowhere for days. That's unheard of in America, unless there's weather problems, but there's still planes flying somewhere, even if they can't fly somewhere else. But that's it. No, the skies, the only thing in the skies were birds, pretty much after that. Once all those airplanes were grounded, I mean, but it gave people time to reflect too and like analyze it. I mean, usually you see stern-faced journalists or people who used to be journalists, I'll say, because they're not so much journalists now, but guys that like you would see on the news reporting stories and like graphic stuff and war zones, and they're normally stern-faced and just get the news out. And guys like Tom Brokaw, man, guy was like in tears. Other people were virtually in tears, or I mean, the media couldn't wrap their head around this any more than they can wrap their head around how did Donald Trump get elected, or how they'll wrap their head around how does Donald Trump get reelected. Oh my God, how did this happen? How did we let this happen? We couldn't stop him. But if we don't do something about this border, I mean, millions of Americans are dying from drug overdoses. I mean, and then these people are coming in, they're stealing people's identities. Maybe they're dead and they're using fake social security numbers, but they're not paying taxes. And then here's the great part. They send money back to their home country tax-free. Really? Why is it tax-free? I mean, you just go to Western Union and send money anywhere in the world tax-free. I mean, no, not for you, the American. That's not even the reality of it in that sense. I mean, well, I'm out in left field today. I'm just trying to get this done. Got a lot of things going on in my brain, but that's besides the point. But if we don't secure this border, What else is going to happen? I've noticed that a lot of these people there's a massive measles outbreak. Where did this come from? Because it really wasn't a problem for the last many, many years. I don't know, several decades. And then suddenly there's an outbreak. But there's also suddenly a massive overwhelming of people coming into our country. And if you look at the border and at the detention centers or the facilities that are holding them, whatever you want to call them, not concentration camps like AOC had to say. She's a little off the wall. I don't know what planet she landed from, but maybe they should take her back. Because we don't need her, and the people in our own damn district don't even like her. That's the sad part. But now Border Patrol and these people that work at these facilities are all starting to get sick. I mean, we're going to have a health epidemic before too long at this rate. I mean, when people used to come here legally, in my grandparents' generation and their grandparents' generation, people went to Ellis Island and they were quarantined to make sure they didn't have these things. And if you weren't healthy, you were actually sent back. But now we're just taking these people in. And that's going to lead to what? Oh, rising healthcare costs, because now we're going to have to treat all these people and they don't have insurance. Yeah, sure, the government may pay for it, but, when government pays for things like education, what do the colleges do? Raise tuition. So when the government starts paying for everybody's health care, like the Democrats would like, or at least all the illegals, the price of health care is going to go up, which is not good for anybody. Not at all, because then your health's going to suffer because you can't afford to go to a doctor, or you can't afford health insurance because the price is sky high. And when it comes to that, I don't get it, because like car insurance, man, every company's competing and everyone has the lowest rate, but the coverage is all the same, pretty much. But health insurance, I don't know, why don't we create different kinds of health insurance, like Healthy People Plan, where you get a physical, a flu shot, a couple of routine visits a year for testing, like blood work, maybe some chiropractic care, because maybe you just have aches and pains. And then Healthy Woman Plan, where it covers maternity related issues, if you're going to have a baby and things like this. And then pediatric care plans. I mean, why can't we customize this coverage? But it's all irrelevant to what this episode's about, except for the fact that what is the next crisis? Because it's coming. Whether anyone wants to think so or not, it is coming. Call me a conspiracy theorist. I don't give a damn. Whatever. I'm a conspiracy theorist. No, I'm a realist. This is reality. I mean, how many of these? I mean, we got 100,000 people coming across the board. That's 1 million people a year. So their estimate of, there's 11 million. If there was 1 million people coming in the country a year for the last 20 years, that's 20 million. Now, if it was 40 years, that's 40 million. Nobody knows. That's the sad problem. And then, the Democrats are freaking because Trump's going to deport millions of people. Oh, he can't do that. No, he can't do that. Yeah, he can. I mean, when these countries start having millions of their people show back up there and they're like, oh my God, it's a crisis, what do we do? We got all these people now, what do we do with them? Although they're from there originally. Then they'll probably start doing something to stop the flow. Fortunately, Mexico is helping in that situation, but granted, the Mexican government's not always on top of things, and they've been a little corrupt with the drug cartels, so they're not going to do everything they can do to prevent this. And then AOC with her concentration camp, there's a big difference. The people in the Holocaust, they didn't enter a country illegally. They didn't choose to go break the law and then suffer that consequence. Not at all. They just suffered the consequence for being who they were. These people are actually breaking the law And then this is the consequence, which they didn't think about, or they damn well didn't care. And then people are complaining that they have to suffer this consequence. But in the reality of that, if they didn't do it if they didn't break the law in the first place or make the choices they did, they wouldn't be suffering the consequences they're suffering. So we'll be right back in a minute here on the Trumped Up Podcast. Hey, you too can join the podcasting world and be one of the greatest podcasters out there. Build an audience, get sponsorships, earn money, and do many, many interesting things. You can also get listener support to help sponsor your show, all by using Anchor. Anchor is the easiest way to become a podcaster. Anyone can do it. If you got something to say, or someone thinks you got something to say, or you just want to say something, come and join Anchor and join the podcasting revolution. Okay, welcome back. That's a message from our sponsor, Anchor, and they're great. Gives you the world of podcasting revolution. But back to the topic of border security, immigration, and are we allowing the next 9/11? Not only is border security a problem, but we also have this problem of people overstaying their visas. I mean, we need to go round these people up and really just get them out of here. I mean, the Democrats are always talking about climate change and, hey, if you overpopulate your country like China does, then what's going to happen? Oh, you're going to affect the climate because you're going to use more resources, and then you're going to contribute to more carbon footprint. There's going to be more problems. I mean, we're going to be using more electricity. We're going to be putting out more carbon into the environment, more pollution, more trash. You know, to clean up the oceans, which America's not the problem there, and the straws aren't going to help. There's 5 Asian countries that are basically polluting the entire damn ocean, and they need to get to the United Nations to get them to freaking get these countries to stop doing what they're doing because there's better things they can do. And America's carbon footprint is like already the lowest in the entire civilized world. But Democrats don't like to see reality. They just like to make everything a crisis. Because I remember I used to watch Glenn Beck when he was on Fox News, and one of the straight out of the Democrat playbook is never let a crisis go to waste, which that's what they're trying to do with the humanitarian crisis at the border. Fortunately, they just started the funding process of this problem, but that's another thing. Americans suffer like with living on limited income if they're on welfare or disability or other programs, SNAP benefits, because we're taking money that should be going to Americans to deal with a problem that shouldn't exist in the first place. But then Democrats are like, oh, they didn't see the caravan coming. Oh, that was just trumped up. It's not real. Oh my God, and there's been like 8 of these at least since they said this. It's really a mass invasion. It is. You can't let a mass invasion happen in your country because the results are unfathomable. I mean, you got to dig into it, really. I mean, the security reasons. I mean, I think sometimes I'm like, people are like vanishing and nobody knows what happens to them, but maybe that's because nobody knows who the hell went out and kidnapped them, or, oh, this is an unsolved murder. Yeah, and we have no suspect because maybe somebody here is illegally and they don't know who the hell they were. It's not like your fingerprints in our database somewhere if you're an illegal. I mean, if you came to the border and then they released you, then okay, they probably have this info. But the people just hopping the border, that's a whole nother ball game. I mean, we got illegals here that have killed people in drunk driving accidents. I mean, how many Americans? I mean, the Democrats seem to worry about these people and their problems, but what about how this is all affecting Americans, the people they're supposed to represent? And then they think they're going to get Latino votes, people here legally from Puerto Rico or legally immigrated from the Dominican Republic or Spain or other Latin countries. But the Latin people that are in America, the Hispanics, whose unemployment is now at a record low, why would they support somebody coming here illegally who work for less money than them because they're here illegally, which in turn would hurt them financially? The Democrats just clump people together, but I know if I was a Hispanic person in America legally, I sure as hell wouldn't want people coming here illegally who will work for $6 an hour. That's another thing with the minimum wage thing. They all say, oh, minimum wage. Yeah, go ahead, raise minimum wage, and then they're going to hire more illegals, and it's not going to benefit you in the least. But our government, I mean, Donald Trump's doing everything he can, but he's being fought at every turn. Everything he tries to do, the Democrats and even some of those anti-Trump Republicans over there, or rhinos as they may be, like they just fight him at every corner. I mean, all the problems we have could be fixed. I mean, build a wall. Okay, that takes some money. Big deal. Takes money. So tariffs on Mexico would probably in turn pay for the border. And then they say, oh, but that's Americans paying for it. You know what? If I got to pay a little extra for things to secure our border, so be it. There's other ways they could pay for things. I mean, they're always talking about legalizing marijuana, but for some reason they won't do it, probably because the lobbyists, the big pharma, won't allow this to happen because big pharma is making billions and they don't want somebody taking any of their money away. But big alcohol also goes against that. At least big tobacco is smart and they're trying to get in on the game. But yeah, are we going to have some massive outbreak of disease or problems like that, health concerns? Because it's already happened. I mean, they were saying these people had the flu in like May, but flu season's usually over by May, so I don't know what they're bringing in here. But and then we got the crisis of the women coming here pregnant. Yet again, we have to pay for these births. We have to pay for their health care. We have to pay for the child's health care, who, if the baby's born in America for some reason, is a citizen. But if you're a foreign diplomat and you have a kid here, your child's not a citizen. It really makes no sense. But besides the health problems, which could become a major epidemic, I mean, if you look at LA and the homeless and things like typhus are popping up, which I don't really know what that is, but I'm sure it's not too pleasant. And nobody really wants to get these things. I mean, yeah, when we have all these homeless people, but we're going to take in all these illegal immigrants and take care of them, why we can't solve America's homeless problem. I mean, it's getting better for the veterans, thank God, but we're not at zero, so that's not good. But what are these people? I mean, when little children can come across the border by themselves, and drug cartels are sneaking in the drugs because they're getting in the country. It's not the ones going through the border checkpoints are actually getting caught. I mean, some probably do slip through. I mean, you can only catch so much, but when you got the guy with the backpack that just snuck through the woods at some point where there was no fence, so what if these happen to be the next terrorist cell? What if they're already here? That's the really scary part. I mean, with the dark web and all these burner phones that you can just throw away that nobody's probably tracking, that's probably a whole nother topic for another day of the underground world and the underground economy. Maybe I'll get into that next week about how the real world works. But yeah, I don't doubt there's people out there right now planning, maybe not the next 9/11, but maybe these sleeper cells and terrorists that are coming across our border, because I'm reading it's already happening. They're already taking advantage of this. Are just simply gonna be out there lurking in the background, and then one day it's the next 9/11, and then people are like, oh my God, how did this happen? How could this happen? Well, you didn't listen to the warnings. If you listened to the warnings the last time, maybe you could have prevented it. Maybe not. I can't say one way or the other. But this time it could be prevented if people were doing what they were supposed to do. But Congress isn't interested in that. They're interested in talking points and stupid crap. I mean, this session of Congress has been in session for like 6 months, and they've done very little to nothing. And probably going to do very little to nothing for the next year until the next election and the next midterms. Well, it's not midterms because it's a presidential election year, but the House of Representatives get reelected every 2 years. And if you went out and voted for these people based on health care, I'd say you should go out right now. Go to the politician's website of your district that you voted for that said they're going to do something about healthcare and have done absolutely nothing. I mean, at least Donald Trump, he got rid of that mandate, which, okay, people freak out, whatever, but now you're not paying a tax for not owning something. That's be like taxing somebody for not owning a car. Really, it was a stupid thing. I don't know. But yeah, we really got to get on top of that. I mean, Homeland Security, the FBI, all the intelligence agencies, the CIA, the State Department, they need to get going because they need to be sure they can stop the next thing. Because I know America can handle it, but sadly, the sad reality of that is if it does happen, maybe that's the straw that breaks the camel's back, that brings Americans back together. I don't want a terrorist. Don't take me wrong. I don't want something like that to happen to bring Americans back together. Americans just need to start coming back together. Yeah, you can have your differences of opinion. You can watch whatever network you want to watch and go with your views. But hey, all in all, we share one thing in common. We're all part of the United States of America, one country. Yeah, we're all citizens of the same country. We should all be going for the same thing, the betterment of America and the American people. I mean, a lot of it's improving under the Trump administration, like the economy, but there's a lot of things we still need to do out there. Well, glad you tuned in again this week. Sorry I couldn't make it more comical. It's a little bit of a serious subject, and I could probably go on and on for weeks and weeks. You can catch the Trumped Up podcast on many different podcasting platforms. You can also go check out our new Trumped Up podcast page on Facebook and give us a like. That would be awesome. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell anyone that needs to hear a different point of view. And as time goes on, don't worry, the show will get better. We're working on it. We're going to get some guests in the near future, hopefully, so we can have a total discussion and we can go off into many different directions. But when it's just you, it's a little different. So thanks for tuning in. Give us a like. Remember, there's sponsorship segments available. You can give us monthly support. And we thank you for tuning in. This is the Trumped Up Podcast, and I'm Keith Rao, and I'm out.